Hey everybody, so I wanted to introduce you to my friend Tonee Ndungu, a Kenyan entrepreneur, thought leader. You have launched companies in ed tech and fintech. We know each other. We've actually done a couple of these.
Yeah, we have.
Yes, it's great to see you. We've had some really robust conversations, and I'm hoping to share a little bit of your story, what you've been working on with our audience. So first, you're from Nairobi.
That's right.
Your personal backstory has really informed your approach to inclusiveness in tech. Why don't you tell people a little bit about that?
So it's super simple. I was born dyslexic with ADHD, struggled in secondary school or high school with my education journey, whereas in primary school I was really good. So I knew what it was like to be successful in something, but then as I got older it became harder and harder because of a learning inability that I had. And when I got into tech in the 1990s, I started thinking, what can Kenya become in the tech space? And in 2009, started a tech hub that then became the baseline for Silicon Savannah, as we call it now. I never thought that that was possible, mainly because of how I was educated, mainly because of the gaps and the traumas of growing up in that system that confines you. So as I've started my technology journey over the last 20 years, my mind has always been about how can we get people to see what they could do outside of the stories they have been told about themselves. And Africa is a very good place to be able to have that mindset, because I know technology in Africa can change people's lives. It's just no one has come and put the hyperscaler money that has been seen in the US and in China and other places. So for me, that's why I believe that technology will not just make an impact in the continent, it has to make an impact in the continent, because the people who are willing to use it are there, the technology is there. It's just a matter of building the bridge and connecting them.
Yeah, and which is what you've really been working on in your career. And I've also heard you talk about the fact that you believe AI development for Africa should be in Africa.
That's right.
Explain that.
Look, culturally we have 2,000 languages. We have stories about ourselves that have never been online. A lot of our stories, our history is oral. So the representation of Africa in the weights of AI is completely lacking, or at least very minimal. And I feel like if we're going to take AI and make it make sense on the continent needs to be involved, not just because our history hasn't been online, I think appropriately, but because we understand the problems we are trying to solve ourselves. And those problems are not going to come from the ingenuity of whether it's the West or the East or anywhere else. They're going to come from the countries, continents, and the regions we're in. So it's really appropriate to ask the folks that live the life you want to change to be involved in changing that life themselves. And that's why I believe the continent itself it may not necessarily have the data center resources or the energy resources, but it's got the human capacity resources, it's got the data resources, and definitely the ingenuity to try and make this work for the continent.
And I want to talk to you about those resources and investment in those resources. But first, when we talk about the building blocks of technology,
right,
it starts with basic electricity, and then it goes to internet coverage, and it builds from there to high-level compute. We focus a lot on the fact that there are 700 million people who don't have electricity. Probably 500 million of them are on the African continent. There are a couple billion people without internet. A lot of them are on the African continent. Do you think that leads to misconceptions about what the tech capabilities actually are on the continent? And what do you think the biggest myth is about Africa's approach to digital inclusion right now?
Hans Rosling wrote a book about data and the way data is misconstrued to say certain things that it shouldn't. So you say 500 million people don't have electricity in Africa, but yet one of the highest penetrations on a continent for mobile phones is Africa. What are they charging their phones with? Talk about mobile phone penetration, for example. In Kenya, we have 88% mobile phone penetration, but we still have data on most of those mobile phones because we've moved from Android typical slow-paced devices to now smartphones of different price ranges. That misconstrues how the continent is perceived, and you understand perception is reality for very many people who don't come out into the continent. There was a study that was done last year, and I was doing a presentation yesterday that talks about OpenAI's ChatGPT usage in the world per capita. Kenya is number 1. 42.1% of everyone who goes online uses ChatGPT. We are the first in the world. But we're a small country, and a majority of folks, when it comes to AI, 56 million people is not a large number. Yeah. But then again, a majority of the folks are using the free version. Imagine if you empowered them to use more than the 5 credits a day. What would happen if you gave them opportunities to use AI for healthcare, for electricity, for finance, for all of these things? Right. The opportunity, the promise is there. Now, maybe there's a gap in finances because we have a different living standard, but the opportunity definitely exists. In the same way, mobile money didn't seem realistic 15 years ago on the continent, and yet Kenya has the largest mobile money system in the world per capita, then maybe AI fits the same bar. Why don't we push the narrative that let's try? Let's not say we will succeed. Let's just try and then see where that goes. That's where I'm inclined to believe.
So you've raised 2 points in there that I really want to dive into for a second. So the first is affordability.
That's right.
So people could be doing more with these tools if they had the resources to buy more of them, right?
That's right.
For example, you and I were both in Cairo for a UN event, and I was really stunned by what David Senge said, Sierra Leone's chief minister, said about coverage there. Something like 97% of the country has access to 3G.
That's right.
They can't afford the mobile devices. You're talking about getting the credits on ChatGPT to use it for more purposes.
Right.
So that's one thing, right? Well, that's kind of small AI, but it requires investment.
Right.
Then you've got data centers compute, okay? A lot more money.
A lot more money.
And a lot longer proposition in terms of the build out and the infrastructure.
Right.
Which one right now is more critical? I know they're both necessary, but
Right.
which one is more critical? And how do we accelerate so that people aren't left behind?
And that's a really good question because the answer is really straightforward. And Uber did it. When Uber came to Kenya, you could only pay with your card or with cash. But Kenya uses mobile money 90% of the time. And so when Uber integrated mobile money into the Uber platform, it skyrocketed. In what world are we making the assumption that I should only pay for AI tools for $5 or $20 at the end of the month with a card? That's not the way I make money. That's not the way I pay. That's not the way I live. We do small things. We do day-by-day payments. Can I buy a bunch of credits and then eat down the credits over time instead of paying a subscription at the end of the month? These are the kind of local context questions we need to answer. If Anthropic, if OpenAI, if Grok, if whoever it was, instead of saying you're going to pay $20 a month or $22 a month or $5 a month for ChatGPT Go, if we said buy credit to use AI until your credit is disposed, you would have way more people able to say, I have 1,000 shillings today. I need AI for 1,000 credits, or I have 2,000, or I have 200. And against my income, I can be able to engage AI in the financial system and financial culture I understand. And that's why I say it's really important to localize payment systems. It's really important to localize payment infrastructure, but it's also really important to localize payment customs so that you can accommodate for everyone. Because people want to use the technology. It's just the barrier to entry is how they pay for it.
I think that's also an important point to share, that when you're talking about the number of people in Kenya that are already using mobile money, right?
Craziness.
Digital payment systems like that.
Right.
In some ways, that's more advanced than even the United States.
Not in some ways, in every way.
In every way.
That's right.
Right, exactly. So I think it's important to, the baseline is there for the leapfrogging,
Right.
right? So I want to ask you about optimism.
Right.
We've been talking about this a little bit. It came up a bit in our UN event as well. But when I look at what's happening globally right now, I see the pessimism growing in the most developed of economies, the United States, Canada for sure, some parts of Europe. And I see the optimism shooting up in Nigeria, in India, in Vietnam. I haven't looked at polling in Kenya, but it might be there too.
For sure.
What do you attribute that to, and is it warranted?
Opportunity, and it is warranted. When you're in a middle income or high income country, things are good. Systems work, access is available, opportunities are there. When you're in a developing nation, what we're all chasing for is opportunity. It's not talent, because talent is ubiquitous. Opportunity is the challenge. Now, when an opportunity shows up for me to leverage on artificial intelligence for my career, for my life, for my finances, why would I not pick it up? The reason why Tribe is the new company you talked about, the finance, the fintech that I'm running, and we have not launched yet, but we're working towards it. We recognize that financial health generally, because of the lack of financial understanding and appreciation, is limited in my continent because folks don't know how to do money. They just don't know how to do it. No one taught them how to do it. Whether it's investment, whether it's saving, whether it's growing their capital, they don't know how to do it. But AI sits in a position to be able to educate, and even as an AI agent, assist when young people are trying to find a way to grow their capital. That's what Tribe is leaning into. And the thing that provides us the opportunity to do that, because AI helps personalize and helps support individual folks from any part of the country to be able to scale their capital, even if it's in very small micro investments. Now, does that seem like an interesting VC investment for an American firm in the US? No. But in Africa, everybody uses small amounts of things to get where they're trying to go. So for me, the optimism is there because the opportunity is clearly visible, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you are a business, whether you're a student, and even in many cases, whether you are a government, because it allows us to be able to leverage off resources that initially would cost us exponential amounts. Now we can do it at home, in private, on our devices, or in companies that are small scale and do not rely on hyperscalers to succeed. So the optimism is just proof that AI can get into the continent and change it drastically in a very short period of time.
And that's why I love these conversations that I've had with you, because I always walk away feeling really inspired. And I feel like even though we know it's true that there's a huge growing divide, there's also potential for this to become, the next 50 years could really belong to some of these developing countries.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, look, from one Tonee to another, it's always great to see you. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you for having me, Tonee.
Best of luck.
It's very, very cool.